On the box, rotten celluloid, Bot for short. Remember to share and subscribe to these videos if you enjoy them. So I'm going to do a top 10 through my favourite films of a director I really like, Steven Spielberg. I think most people like Steven Spielberg. I know some people probably criticise him, for what they might perceive as a juvenalisation of films after the 70s, but he's always made quality films. Quite hard to find 10 films sometimes by a filmmaker that are top films, a long process, and many filmmakers don't make enough films to have sort of 10 really cracking ones. But I think Spielberg does there or thereabouts. So I'll have a trawl through them now. But a few that didn't make the cut that I think are decent is his second film, or his first proper cinema film, is The Sugarland Express. Good road movie, good performances by William Mafferton, Goldie Hawn, Ben Johnson. Not a typical Spielberg film, but shows his ability with actors and his ability to mix comedy and drama, I think. Just look at my list here, if I'll turn this way. There's a few, there's like War Horse as well, sentimental, cheesy, but I do love animal stories. I thought the effects were very well done on that, with the horse and the war sequences. And it was interesting how he chose to shoot it in a kind of 1940s style, almost like a John Ford, kind of like How Green Was My Valley and stuff like that, but obviously with the colour process. So I like that. I think the BFG was really good. The BFG didn't do that well, but when I watched it, I thought I didn't know the book Roald Dahl, but if you like Roald Dahl, the way it was done, I thought was great. It was really funny. I thought Mark Rylance was perfect with his motion capture performance, much better than Tintin and the Robert Zemeckis things for that technique. And then, of course, Jurassic Park, a film I loved the first time I saw it because we were all blown away by the effects. There's only 65 computer shots, I think, in Jurassic Park, even though you'd think there was more. But when I seen it on repeated viewing, it's the dinosaur sequences that stand up in the film, the sort of human dramas. Not as interesting. It's not a match for his other monster movie, but still, a moment when Spielberg was king of the box office again, after 20 years going back and doing it again. And then, Bridge of Spies was pretty good. Other films I couldn't get away with Ready Player One, The Post's boring, Lincoln's boring, great performance. The Indiana Jones films, all the sequels aren't as good, although they're entertaining apart from the fourth one. War of the Worlds, couldn't really get away with that. Sometimes Spielberg tends to do 2 films in a year. In 2004 he did The Terminal and War of the Worlds. The Terminal I didn't get at all. War of the Worlds, great special effects, but I just found it too heavy-handed. Lost World, terrible sequel. Amistad, boring. Hook, I think that was a turning point for him. He was like, right, I'm just ditching kiddie stuff because I couldn't take that. Always, a film people forget about, but quite pleasant. And so on. But never like 1941 either. But let's crack through. So what have I got in at number 10? So number 10's a flawed film for him, but I do think it's worth seeing. I do think when it's good, it's really good. Again, it suffers from some heavy-handed symbolism at the end with the Twin Towers, and it's Munich. So this is about Israel's response to the assassination, the murder of the Israeli athletes in the Munich Olympics 1972 by Palestinian terrorists. Now, there's a great documentary by Kevin McDonald called 5 Days in September. I think it's 5 Days in September, with Michael Douglas doing the voiceover. Worth watching that first, and then watching Munich, or flip it the other way around. It kind of gets botched, but they, Eric Bana plays an agent called Avner, and he gets hard to put a crew together to go and extract revenge and hunt down the people they think are responsible. So it's pretty brutal, this, and it's really about the nature of revenge. It's got some interesting dialogue, and it's a bit where they've got Golda Meir. Someone played Golda Meir, the Israeli Prime Minister at the time. She says, a home of our own at any cost. And it's quite interesting. It's that idea that basically the Jewish people, because of persecution of the Nazis and through history, they've had enough. It's like we're living in Israel, the state of Israel, and we will protect this and our right to do that at any cost. And I suppose the film sort of explores that. It doesn't explore the Palestinian side. Daniel Craig's pretty cool. He's a South African terrorist. Kieran Hines is very good. The crew's quite interesting. They're not like typical secret agent guys. But it's quite bloody. There's a bit where they assassinate a woman to take revenge. You'd say it's quite misogynistic kind of, they kind of use bicycle pumps as guns. Quite striking scene, very violent for a Spielberg film. More something you'd expect Scorsese or De Palma to do. I think this film's a little too long, like a lot of these films are now. I'm just checking the length of it. I'm just on Wikipedia here, apologies. Yeah, it's 163 minutes, for like a political thriller, although political thrillers can be long. I mean, 2040 is quite long. So I think he loses grip at the end. He's not sure, like, what he wants to say and how to tie it up. But I do think it's an interesting film. It's a good film. There's a cool bit where the guy with Matthew Almerich's in it, from the Diamond Bell and the Butterfly. And the photography's great. And the period detail, it sort of captures that time. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is, maybe this should be higher, but anyway, it's Saving Private Ryan. It's a film I really like this. A lot of people criticise the fact that it's kind of straight ahead 1940s war film with simple morals, but it kind of mirrors the time it's set and the type of war films you get then, but it has this realistic ultra-violence. With its twin battles, the opening and the end battle. Obviously, these have been talked about a lot. The camera work, the realisation of the D-Day landings. One of the great achievements in cinema, I think, and a big credit has to go to Spielberg's team, his cinematographer, Janusz Kaminski, a guy he hooked up with on Schindler's List. So prior to that, Spielberg had used different cinematographers like Alan Davio, and Bill Butler and so on different films, but Douglas Slocum as well, top British guy. But this Superb got kind of shakers on the cameras, they're kind of like a trigger thing, to shake the image and things like that. They also used a technique that Kubrick had used on Full Metal Jacket, where I think the shutter is kind of left open like 45 degrees, don't quote me on this, and then as it films it creates that streaking effect that you see, sort of the disorientation. But I really like a lot of scenes of this. I love the bit where the rain kind of dripping on there's the gun sound, and then Max cuts the sound to the dripping on the leaves, and really good. Yeah, some good moral. There's a lovely scene where they go to visit the mother to tell her sons are dead, apart from Matt Damon, and there's that brilliant sort of photo in the corner, and it's all framed with the car coming up the drive, and kind of really old school filmmaking. Again, something revisiting on the Warhorse. But I think I think the length of this, it's epic, but I think that suits it. It's got great performances. Tom Hanks is very good. Maybe it should be higher, but anyway, it's not today. I just forgot to mention Catch Me If You Can. This was another double whammy year for him. He did a Minority Report, same year, 2002. So I forgot to mention that Catch Me If You Can is a really entertaining film. Great performances by Hanks, by Leo. I think he got an Oscar nomination, and a fantastic performance by Christopher Walken. So that nearly made the cut. Okay, my number 8 is his first film. So technically it's a TV film, but it was released at the cinema in Great Britain. If you're interested, you can check out another thing I did about TV films that were released at the cinema in Britain in the 70s, but it's Jewel. This is fantastic sort of pure filmmaking for me. It's, he's on a tight schedule, he's on a low budget, he's on TV, but he manages to make it cinematic. He makes fantastic use of the truck, the way they shoot the angles of the truck, the way he uses the mirrors of the car, the driver mirror, and the side mirrors to build tension. The way the truck's like a monster, it's some kind of benevolent force. I think it's really good. The only thing that really lets this down is Dennis Weaver. There's nothing wrong with his performance. He's a TV actor, and he does his best, but he gives a TV performance. It would have been better if they'd maybe had a TV actor who was known more for films but had gone into TV. But I'm not sure. But in spite of that, it's a great piece of filmmaking, and I think George Miller, Mad Max, the angles for the road sequence in Mad Max, George Miller, Jewel was an inspiration. So Spielberg, first and foremost, is a great action filmmaker. He's a great pure filmmaker in the Hitchcock tradition. So number 7, it was a toss-up here for his two sci-fis. I think these next two films I'm going to pick are his last really, maybe classic films. I think when as history goes on, I think these are really, really top films. So at number 7, I'm going for Minority Report. I mentioned this was a double whammy year for him with Catch Me If I Can. This has got great washed out cinematography, really cool effects, brilliant use. They hired futurists as advisors to sort of like what things might look like for this film, and the idea of targeted advertising is brilliantly captured. Obviously, they've got people, billboards talking to them, but you think about targeted advertising on Facebook and social media, they're ahead of the game with that. The use of sort of electric cars, magnetic rails and stuff like that. But this is a cop thriller with a conspiracy element, so it's in that tradition of 70s paranoid thrillers, really. He's investigating it, but there's dodgy things afoot. It kind of mirrors, there's a death scene actually that mirrors Kevin Spacey's death in LA Confidential, which effectively as well is a police thriller, but it's a conspiracy thriller. I think Cruise is really good. It makes good use of Cruise's star persona. Colin Farrell's good. Samantha Morton, Max von Sydow. It's a good film. Just quickly the length of this? Yeah. 1 hour 145 minutes. So this is, again, his films are getting on the longer side, but this has still got a good pacing to it, this. And it's kind of more Philip K. Dick. It's got weird bits. There's a bit where he goes to see the lady at and she's got the weird plants. And the weird thing with the eye, the balls, that predict things. When the triplets, the psychic triplets make predictions. It's got some really strange elements, and I like that. So this was just picked by AI. So this is his film from 2001. This is the classic collaboration that kind of wasn't with Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick was preparing this film. He'd had sketches, he had production art ideas, the script with Brian Aldiss, Super Toys Last All Summer Long. And Kubrick said, you should do this, because Spielberg had a great ability with children and that sentimental streak. Kubrick sadly recognised his own coldness. Sadly, Kubrick passed away, so there wasn't as much interaction there. But when I went to see this film, the picture, I thought it was flawed, but I thought it was very good. Then I saw it on TV later on a couple of times, and it gets better. It's very powerful, it's very moving. I read an article the other day about how shattering the ending is. I've got to confess, a spoiler alert, but I didn't realise at the end, I thought the Ben Kingsley voiced thing was an alien, but it's not the Mecha. The Mecha survived, and they find David after 2,000 years. But it's got lots of eerie scenes. There's that cool bit it mirrors Doctor Strangelove with the circular overhead shot, the light fitting in the house, and I think the lady playing the mum's very good. Forgetting the name of the actress. It's idea of AI having consciousness and what responsibilities you have to that. So it's different from the Blade Runner thing, which where you have clones, but with this, what are your moral responsibilities to something that is a machine, but you give consciousness, and where does that cross over? But the bits with the where they're destroying Mecca is pretty cool. I think the effects. I think this was the first film I saw the pictures where the CGI was totally in service of the story and first class. You had trouble kind of spotting all that CGI. Up until this point, there was great CGI breakthroughs like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, but typically films in that period, up until this, used CGI and you could spot the joins when he used too much CGI. Not sure how many effects shots, computer shots this had, but they're all quality. And it's really good. I love Teddy as well. What a wonderful creation Teddy is. So I think there's a few film creators. I think Mark Kermode would slag this at the time and now recognise it as a masterpiece. Yeah, all great films have got flaws, but this is like a dark it's kind of exploring similar things to E.T. in a way, I think. It's kind of got that dark childhood fable thing, and I really like it. So into the top 5 now. So number 5, again, this is quite a tricky one, but I think this is an important film. It's an important film of Spielberg. It's an important film of history, because it's the film by which we view the Holocaust, really. It's Schindler's List. I feel if children at school were going to do about the Holocaust and we're going to watch a film, a dramatisation of the Holocaust, this is the one to watch. This is a turning point for Spielberg. This is the first film where he teamed up with Janusz Kaminski, as I mentioned before. Got rid of his, as you said, dollies, the train, the cameras that run on tracks. Lockdown stuff, they shot handheld. He shot in black and white. basically, because that's how we view World War II footage and the Holocaust footage that we have. And yeah, he does that thing where a lot of people are critical of it, but he kind of tells a story, as horrific it is, that it's about rescuing people from the Holocaust. And if it was just all unremittingly grim, it would be, for want of a better expression, a hard sell. But it has that the positivity where people are getting, are kept safe and will survive, survive till the end of the war, and their legacy will survive. At the end of the film, you have family members and survivors with the real cast members, which I think's pretty cool. You see a lot of that now, but at the time it was something different. There's any number of horrific scenes in this. I think Race Fiennes is staggering, and I think that's something where people forget that Spielberg's brilliant with actors. Right from the outset, he was really good with actors. He's always been a really good actor director, and he's good with stars, so he can take a star and get things out of them, but keep that star persona like Tom Cruise and Harrison Ford. But he can also take an actor, and Liam Neeson's best ever performance in this, one of Ben Kingsley's best. But I think Fiennes takes it, a truly chilling portrayal. A little side story to this, I once watched a documentary, and it was a relative of Amon Goeth, and her family never spoke about him. She knew that she'd had an uncle or something in the war, but they never spoke about him. It was all shrouded in sort of shame, as it would be, and she didn't find out what he did until she went to see Schindler's List. So she went to see Schindler's List at the picture to find out really what her uncle had done and what he was. So quite remarkable. So yeah, Schindler's coming in at number 5 there. Obviously he won the Oscar for this, Spielberg. He also won the Best Director Oscar for Saving Private Ryan, but was robbed by Shakespeare in Love by Harvey fucking Weinstein and Gwyneth Paltrow in the Best Picture, which was shit. Number 4, so kind of surprised how high this is, but it's just such a magical film. And I feel sort of privileged. We went to the pictures with one of my oldest friends from primary school and his mum, and we couldn't get in. There was queues around the block. It's that classic thing. And we had to go there next week, and of course I'm talking about E.T. So when I was younger, I was brought up near Kendal in the Lake District, Cumbria, and there was an old cinema called the Palladium, just a 2-screen job. And we must have gone, for about a 7 o'clock showing. I seem to remember it being dark, to see E.T., and there was just a queue down the street. That's what happened then. In actual fact, the last time I kind of queued for the cinema was Jurassic Park. I went in a multiplex in the Warner Brothers Cinema in Newcastle. It's no longer there. It was over in a place called Manners, which is an area of Newcastle. So there was a little queue for that, but we got tickets with this. We queued. There was no pre-booking then. And then you got so far down the queue, and it's like, no, we're sold out. You might have got as far as seeing the lobby cards, so in the window you'd have the poster for the film, and then you'd have photographic stills that would promote the film, and they were called lobby cards. They're great. So we went back the next week. Then I didn't see it. It wasn't on TV for years, and watched it with my dad at Christmas, and he loved it. So many magical scenes when the bikes take off. And probably maybe John Williams' greatest score for a Spielberg film. The main E.T. theme is just so uplifting. But obviously Schindler's got a fantastic score by Williams with the Isaac Perlman as well, beautiful. But we may come and watch his most famous score in a sec. But for a long time the biggest film of all time, massive cultural phenomenon. With inflation, still be up there. In the billions. So yeah, and this is before the Chinese market and the wider markets we've got now. So that's my number 4, E.T. Again, just shows Spielberg's skill with children as well. Drew Barrymore and the kids are fantastic. So an amazing director of actors across generations. Okay, number 3. This one, last time I watched it was really cool. It is got a little long sort of stretch on it. You sort of recognise how 1970s it is. But this is probably the first kind of more adult film I saw at the pictures, and it's Close Encounters. So we went to see this at the pictures. It was actually 1978 when it came out in the UK. So it must have been my middle brother's 12th birthday. So his birthday's July the 4th, so it was around that time. But my mum, interesting enough, my mum was like, I've got to take him to this bloody UFO film, but she loved it. And I think, again, that's his skill. He can take a genre like science fiction and put it in a certain way that it has mass appeal. Last time we watched it, one of the things I love about this is the bits that are obviously studio set. There's a bit where they go up on the kind of hillside on the road and they're looking for the UFOs, and you can see the fence and the cop car pulls up, and you can see the artifice. You can see this is a studio set, very well done, but it kind of reminds me of 50s sci-fi films like Invaders from Mars and films like that, where you've got like a field and fence, but it's obviously studio set, and I love that. And there's a bit where the little child goes off. He's in a farmhouse, and Melinda Dillon's character walks out in the field, and again, it's sort of got that matte painting quality, or there's some kind of process, but it's fake, but in a really cool way. And all the bits with the where he's on top of the mountain, that's a big studio set and an aircraft hangar. And again, you can see the rocks a bit plastic, but I love it. Dreyfuss is great. There's a weird bit, actually, Carl Weathers appears in it, and Lance Henriksen, people you wouldn't know. I still think the end's profoundly moving. When he goes in the ship, the pilots come out, he goes off up in the ship, and it's full of optimism. And you don't really get films like that now. E.T.'s quite optimistic, apart from like the people trying to incarcerate him. But go and see films now, even like the Marvel films and the big blockbusters, there's not that optimism to me. But that's maybe the age I'm at. So Close Encounters, another big hit, apart from 1941, he was just having hit after hit at this point. Okay, so now we're up to number 2. So this is one of the all-time action films. And it's Raiders of the Lost Ark at 1981. I went to see this for the pictures at the aforementioned Kendall Palladium. Absolutely loved it. I actually went with a lad who used to live up the road from me, and he'd moved away, but he'd come back to see some family and friends that week. So it was probably the last time I saw him, and sadly died later on. He had a heart condition. But we actually went with his little brother, and his little brother got a bit upset because we wanted an ice cream and we didn't have enough money. He's really sweet. But it's great. Raiders, I think this is like another lesson. It's kind of taking, if you look at Jewel, which is about action, about storyboarding, and Spielberg using all the filmic techniques to create tension. I think he takes, with the truck, particularly the truck chase in this film, and the action sequences, you can see where he's taken everything he's learned on that. And subsequent films, particularly that, I think. And then he's just created these incredible action sequences. I still think the truck chase sequences are benchmark action sequences. There's the car chase in Bullet, the French Connection. There's various Bond sequences, and so forth. And I think the truck chase in this is just, you could put that on for anyone, any aspiring filmmaker, anyone who loves cinema, and just go look at that. And it just stands a loads of brilliant sequences. And this film just zips along brilliantly as well. Just quickly, how long's this? Pardon me. It's not even 2 hours long. And again, he's that thing, he always wanted to make a James Bond film. And effectively with this, you've got the kind of almost pre-credit sequence, sort of. And the length of it is a kind of Bondian length. Great score by John Williams. Karen Allen's great. He's got this, he's gone back to the 1940s. He's got the Hawksian female in it, the Howard Hawks style female in the pants, trousers, you could drink with the best of them, like a Katharine Hepburn or Rosalind Russell or that type of character. The villains are great. Ronald Lacey's amazing. Paul, what's his second name? Anyway, Belloc. Dr. Jones, amazing. John Rhys Davies, it's absolutely fucking brilliant. And Harrison Ford's, obviously Han Solo's his other big role, but I think Indiana Jones in this, it's his iconic role. The sequels, the second one's got too much screaming. It's got some bad elements, but great action sequences. But Cassie's wife, Kate Capshaw, that lets it down. Or soon-to-be wife, and the kid's annoying. And then the Last Crusade's got the fantastic interplay with Sean Connery, but it's kind of got the same kind. They're after the same kind of thing. It's a religious artifact. Who chose well. I do like some bits of it, but I find the action not as good in that. And then the fourth one, starts off well. I like the A-bomb test bit where he wraps himself in the fridge, but then it loses its way spectacularly. But we'll see what happens with the fifth one. Okay, so let's just go back through the top 10. So there was Sugarland Express, Bridge of Spies, BFG, Jurassic Park, Warhorse, Catch Me If We Can. They didn't quite make the cut. I think Catch Me If You Can was close. So number 10 was Munich, 9 Saving Private Ryan, and maybe have that higher sometimes. Duel 8, Minority Report 7, AI 6, Schindler's List 5, ET 4, Razor Lost Ark, Close Encounters 3 and Razor Lost Ark 2. So number 1, you probably guess what it is. It's Jaws. So this is Spielberg's breakout film. It's his second proper cinema release in the US. Had a lot of problems. Best-selling book, went over budget, and yeah, it wasn't a dead cert. But basically, Universal recognised what they had on their hands, and they did a really radical rollout of it. They rolled out on more screens nationally, which expanded really quickly. They did advertising spots, so rather than having to advertise over and over when it went to a different region, they could just do it all at once. And they had the producer and Peter Benchley go on chat shows and so on. The upshot was it became the biggest film of all time at the time. I just checked before, and its gross was $472 million in 1975 across 76. So if you released it now, you probably multiply that by about 5 for the average ticket price. So you're probably talking about $2.4 billion this film grossed. And remember, you don't have the Chinese market or the other kind of new markets we've got now in Southeast Asia. So, if you wanted a comparison, you'd be looking at Avengers Endgame level grosses for this, or getting close to that Force Awakens. Well, more than Force Awakens actually, but certainly Avengers Endgame, the last one. Avatar. So, as well, again, great casting. The beauty of this, it casts 3 actors who are well known, are really good, but not stars, so they don't eat the screen. I think Scheider's superb. I think he's the secret weapon in this. Dreyfuss and Shaw have the more showy roles. But they're just so brilliant. And then Shaw brought in his gift as a writer, and he helped write the SS Indianapolis scene. Surely one of the, just something that's missing. If you had to sort of show someone a sequence from a film and go, this is what's missing in modern film, you got 3 guys sat around, then you just got Robert Shaw talking, cutaways, a little bit of underscoring, and he just tells this chilling story and describes, what happened, and it's just brilliant. The thing I love about this is the 70s of it's like Close Encounters. It starts off quite. We say it starts off slow, but it's like it pretty much establishes the 3 main characters within 20 minutes. The kind of the credit sequence. The start's brilliant. It has the Jaws theme. The underwater bit. The girl gets eaten. Really brilliant sequence that. And then it's got that ability to zip along where just 2 hours the whole film is. The other thing's interesting about it is it's set at that time in 1975 where older people look older, so that the young boy who gets eaten by the shark, the classic reverse zoom dolly shot when he's on the beach, the lady actress is quite old. It's just that strange thing. There's another bit where a guy comes out of some boat related thing. He's just obviously some local with a pipe, and there's little quirky sort of French New Wave documentary type things in it, and there's a bit where Scheider near the start, he's just kind of walking down the street and there's people talking to him, but there's a naturalism about it, and again, you don't get that in films now. We'll get things where people shoot handheld and stuff, but there's kind of a little bit of life happening, and it's that wonderful thing in 70s cinema where you've got everything that's happening in the post-war era, and so you get a blockbuster film like this with these little touches, like the dinner scene in Star Wars, where Luke's just having dinner with his aunt and uncle. It's almost shot in a kind of neo-realist style. Okay, so that's the other great bit is when Scheider's on the beach. This is a brilliant thing Spielberg does where people walk across the camera and he uses it as a wipe. So someone walks across the camera and it cuts closer, and then he's intercutting different sort of levels, closer up and further away. It builds tension, and then the kid gets eaten, and then the vertigo trombone shot, the reverse zoom dolly shot. Quickly that's so the camera focuses in, but it reverses out, so it creates this focal distortion, I suppose you'd call. That's probably the wrong description. But it's great, and then Shaw's obviously brilliant, Dreyfuss, it's pretty gory. I mean, Robert Shaw's death, is so gory, the screams, And yeah, the shark's kind of rubbery. There's a couple of sequences where the shark's pretty good. When it first pops up, you're going to need a bigger boat. I mean, the shark's good. I mean, when we munching Robert Shaw, it's not successful. But I think the failure of the shark is what makes the film a success, because, hey, the shark's not working too well. We'd better keep it out of sight. And in a horror film or a thriller, you know, you keep the danger off screen. And that's what the success of the film is. Partly, obviously, John Williams' score as well. Dun, 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 dun. Brilliant. Using the Phrygian mode for the musicians out there. He also uses the Lydian dominant mode. That's actually a guitarist called George Lynch I really like. I'm going off here, but he does a lick and it's a bit like John Williams kind of thing, although this lick as well, the John Williams phrase, does combine the Phrygian mode. But again, I've spoken about this on other things, you know, the use of modes and different sounds in musical scores to create different soundscapes and tension. But yeah, great cinematography. Actual fact, Bill Butler's cinematography, they were going to lock the camera down on the boats, and so Bill Butler said, look, everyone's going to be sick. It's going to be waving. I'll shoot a handheld. So, you know, if they've got big cameras, it must have had a bit of help. But so all the bits on the boat is actually shot handheld. And then obviously Bill Butler or his camera operators are reacting with any kind of, you know, motion. That's another cool thing. The other final thing is Spielberg, you know, he's a master showman, and he, when he went to the test screenings or early screenings, you're going to need a bigger boat line, got a big, you know, response, so they actually had it, held the scene a bit longer, cut it a bit different length, and increased the volume of Shiloh's line. Then he felt he needed another scare, and when the head pops out of the boat, that's a classic. You probably know this was filmed in a swimming pool, so the editor of it, Verna Fields, they called her Mother Cutter, and she had a house out in Encino, California, a swimming pool. Spielberg used his own money, the studio saying, you're not having any more money, he'd gone over budget. And he basically went out there, they put powdered milk in the swimming pool, put a tarpaulin over the top, and then used like a rubber head and a dummy body, and, you know, basically created that classic scare. Just looking, what was the budget? $9 million. I mean, it's amazing to think this film went over budget and freaking out. $9 million it cost. I'm not sure what the average budget of the film was back then, but let's just say it's 3 times the average budget of a film now, I suppose. Well, in today's money, it'd be $40-50 million, but in terms of film budgets now, it would probably be, I don't know, knocking, it's a guesstimate, 150 million. I don't know, 200 million. But the thing is, routinely now, films cost 200 million. You know, there's films coming out, Fast and Furious 9 came out recently, Jungle Cruise, films like that, they're all $200 million. But that's the nature of the biz. And in some ways, this film started that. As a summer film, it basically created the idea of the summer tentpole blockbuster. And that period's now been extended in films. You know, summer films now start in March and finish sometime in September. But back then, it was kind of like, you know, it's the summer holidays.